All right, today we're jumping into this really powerful sermon. It tackles a question I think we all wrestle with. When the world just feels broken, what can one person actually do? And the answer it gives, it's all about the simple but super powerful act of persistence.
I mean, it's a heavy question, right? You turn on the news, scroll through your phone, and it's just this constant stream of injustice, powerful people seemingly getting away with anything, and just this general anxiety in the air. It is so easy to feel small, completely overwhelmed by it all. But this sermon, it argues that the best response to all this modern chaos is actually a strategy that's thousands of years old.
And yeah, that ancient strategy is persistence. But let's be super clear here. This isn't about just sitting back and hoping things get better. The sermon defines persistence as this active, relentless, almost stubborn refusal to give up or give in to despair. It's framed as our most powerful tool, especially when we feel like we have nothing left in our arsenal.
So why is persistence such a big deal in this message? Well, to really get it, the sermon takes us back in time to the world where these ideas first started. And let me tell you, it was not a peaceful or comfortable place. And this really gets to a key point. The biblical call to persist was never some abstract philosophical idea. Nope. It was a gritty, real-world survival strategy. It was forged by people who were living under the thumb of powerful empires, facing very real threats every single day. For them, faith wasn't just some comforting thought. It was a conscious, daily act of defiance just to keep going. And that brings us right back to our world today. The sermon makes this compelling case that while our empires might look different, that feeling of being under siege, it's back. That relentless fire hose of bad news and online rage we're all drinking from, it makes that ancient call to be deliberately persistent feel not just relevant, but totally essential for our own sanity. Okay, so to really understand this idea of persistence in action, the sermon dives into what is basically a masterclass in storytelling from Jesus himself. It's a parable that sets up this epic showdown, the most powerful person you can imagine versus the most powerful. So let's meet our two contenders.
So in one corner, you've got the widow. In that society, she's socially invisible. She has zero status, zero power, zero leverage. Her only real asset is her voice and this stubborn demand for what's right. And in the other corner, the judge. This guy is the definition of corruption. He's accountable to no one, not God, not people. For him, justice isn't a right. It's a product, something to be bought and sold. Yeah, the sermon puts it really bluntly with this quote, "Pay to play justice is no justice at all." I mean, the entire system is rigged against her from the start. The judge works on bribes, and for a woman who has nothing, every official door to justice is just slammed in her face. So this leaves her with only one strategic option. She can't bribe him, she can't overpower him, so what does she do? She decides to weaponize her presence. She becomes this constant, unavoidable part of his life day in, day out, until wearing him down is literally her only path to getting what she needs. Now, this powerful story isn't just about fighting for justice in the world. The sermon uses it as a kind of springboard to totally reframe how we think about prayer, especially for those times when it feels like we're, well, just talking into an empty room. And it's a question that I think hits home for anyone who's ever felt unheard, right? If your prayers are just met with silence, what's even the point? Are we just supposed to be nagging some reluctant God? The sermon's answer here is a really radical shift in how we look at it. This is the sermon's central rethink. Prayer isn't a passive wish list. It's an active search for good news. It's like being a spiritual detective, hunting for clues of hope and grace and justice in a world that seems to be doing its best to hide them. It's not waiting, it's seeking. And this is so important. The parable is not comparing God to that corrupt judge. No way. It's comparing us to the persistent widow. So the whole point isn't to wear down a reluctant God. The point is to relentlessly chase after the justice and goodness that God already wants for the world. Our persistence is what gets us in sync with that divine purpose. Okay, so if prayer is the search for good news, what happens when you find it? Well, the sermon argues that finding it is only half the battle. Now you have a responsibility to actually share it. And to really hammer this point home, the sermon brings up this ancient letter of mentorship to a young reader named Timothy. The instructions he gets are super clear, and they're urgent. Proclaim the message. Be persistent about it, whether it's a popular thing to do or not. And just as important, do it with patience. and be that steady voice against all the swirling myths and misinformation of the day. This sets up such a powerful dynamic, right? The internal search for good news through prayer, and then the external sharing of that good news. They're presented as two totally inseparable things, like two sides of the same coin. The sermon really stresses that for hope to actually work, it can't just be a private secret. It has to be given a voice. So all of these ideas, the historical context, the parable, the reframing of prayer, they all come together in one last really powerful metaphor. It's an image that just perfectly captures how the small, persistent act of one person can ripple out and create these huge waves of change. You know, the sermon gets it. It acknowledges that one person praying, one voice calling out for justice, can feel, well, as small and insignificant as a single drop of water in the ocean. It's that familiar, nagging question we all ask. Really, what difference can I possibly make? But here's the payoff. The sermon's big reveal is that when your drop of water is added to another, and another, and another, suddenly you have a current. Those individual acts of persistent faith, they combine to become a real force, a rushing river of hope that can literally wear down injustice and change the entire landscape. And so the original parable ends with this kind of haunting question from Jesus. And it's one the sermon just lets hang in the air for a second. After all this struggle, after all the injustice in the world, will faith even be found on earth? And the sermon's answer is a resounding, defiant yes. But it's a faith that isn't found in some big, dramatic lightning bolt from the sky or in perfect institutions. No. It's found in the quiet, stubborn, relentless persistence of ordinary people. It's in every single prayer, every protest, every single drop that gets added to that river of hope. That, the sermon concludes, is where the real power has always been.